Now, hurricane coverage continues on the Weather Channel.
Packed highways and interstates, cars packed with clothes and food. Families trying to rush out of the way of Hurricane Francis. The watches and warnings cover more than 14 million people across Florida, and they're trying to prepare. But where and when will the storm hit? We have the latest projections. The Weather Channel Evening Edition tracks Hurricane Francis right now.
Good evening. I'm Paul Goodlow.
And I'm Jennifer Lopez. We're busy tonight watching Hurricane Francis move through the Bahamas and toward the Florida coast. Let's give you the latest on the hurricane warnings that are still in place for Florida City, just south of Homestead, Florida, all the way to Flagler Beach. That's up into northern Florida. Let's bring you the latest on the hurricane. As of 8 o'clock, wind still at 140 miles an hour. Center of circulation did pass over San Salvador Island in the central Bahamas, and winds were reported there up to 120 miles an hour. We're expecting those winds to be a little on the gusty side coming into the Florida coast, southeast Florida coast, perhaps this time tomorrow night and into the early Saturday morning hours.
And we have complete live coverage of Hurricane Francis tonight. Storm tracker Jim Cantore, he's in Palm Bay, Florida. That's near Melbourne. Mike Seidel is stationed in Miami Beach. And in Central Florida, we have Stephanie Abrams in Orlando.
And we begin with Jim Cantore. Again, he's in Palm Bay, he's been sitting there watching the evacuees just drive by all day long.
And Jim, 14 million people, 14 million Floridians told to evacuate. I'm pretty sure it's pretty much a ghost town tonight around Palm Bay.
Yeah, there's not a lot of folks, especially out on the beach here. Now, again, remember, I'm inland here in Palm Bay. The Barrier Island is the area that they asked to evacuate today in Brevard County, and that was a good thing. And I'll tell you, just driving down from Daytona Beach, which is probably about 90 miles or so, we saw a lot of traffic moving northbound today. So the word of the day was evacuation. With a holiday weekend coming up, most people would think, hey, this is just holiday traffic. But no, these are people leaving to get out of harm's way. As Hurricane Francis heads toward Florida, thousands of Floridians are heading north. Most of these people coming from Palm Beach, Flagler County, which has been ordered to evacuate on the beaches. Interstate 95 from Daytona Beach south was bumper to bumper for miles. But not everyone is leaving just yet.
I don't know, maybe, but as of right now, no, because we don't know where to go. And the traffic on 95 is just insane right now.
Rob Starr and his wife Crystal just moved to Melbourne a few months ago. This is their first hurricane.
It's scary. It's very different for me, so I'm trying to prepare, best as we can.
Their plan? To either ride out the storm or go to a nearby shelter. But right now, they're getting gas while they can.
Just in case, if we don't have power for a couple days, we may just want to leave.
Well, tonight you're looking at some traffic on Interstate 95, a far cry from where we were earlier this afternoon. Looks like things have dramatically improved, especially down here in southeastern Brevard County. The other issue, though, has been gas. A shortage on gasoline. Not a lot left to it for two reasons. Number one, the people that own the gas stations decided to board up and shut down. Number two, nobody's coming in with tankers and filling these gas tanks. So where you're going, make sure you've got enough gas to get you there. Well, let's go down south a little bit. Miami, Florida. Mike Seidel's joining us tonight. And Mike, I want to ask you what type of day you've had. Have you seen more evacuation or have you seen more preparation in your neck of the woods?
Jim, we've seen a lot of both, especially once that mandatory evacuation was issued late this morning here in Miami-Dade. Not only the boarding up, which really ratcheted up this morning, but they shut down all the hotels. Everybody had to get off this Barrier Island, Miami Beach, down to Key Biscayne, up towards Broward County, Fort Lauderdale. Everybody had to get on the other side, basically the intercoastal, if not a bit farther east. So once again, it was a very busy day and an excellent day weather-wise. It was sunny, generally dry, and about 90 degrees. And speaking of an excellent day, it was a great day to be out on the beach. There were still a few hardy folks who decided to extend their vacation. They're in town trying to soak up the sunshine. A lot of Europeans here, and they took advantage of almost a deserted beach. Basically, the workers down here, the maintenance workers, trying to get all the chairs and the umbrellas in. Tonight, they're still trying to get the beach stands in. They're still doing that late tonight. And basically, the hotel pool is deserted tonight. Everything that can be blown around has been tied down. Let's look at U.S. land hurricanes from 1900 to 2000. 36% of all landfalling hurricanes since 1900 through 2000 hit the state of Florida. No surprise with all the miles, hundreds of miles of coastline. But look at this. Of the Category 5, 4, and 5 hurricanes, 76% hit either Florida or Texas. We had Charlie just a few weeks ago. We'll likely have another major making landfall in the next couple of days. Wind was the last direct hit, though, by a major hurricane in South Florida. For Palm Beach, it was an unnamed hurricane before we named them back in '49. The last hurricane to make landfall was a Category 1 in '99. That was Irene. The same here in Miami. But the last major here, we all remember this, was Hurricane Andrew back in 1992. Jim, we're going to be heading north up Interstate 95 tonight, and it's nice to hear that traffic has eased up somewhat, because I'm a small-town boy, and I don't like to sit in traffic.
Well, Mike, it looks like you're going to have a pretty good night traveling. Just make sure your gas tank is full, because you're not going to get very far without it. Thanks very much. All right, let's go ahead and bring in our hurricane expert, Dr. Steve Lyons. And Steve, let's talk a little bit about wind damage potential here. And I want to hear from you what your confidence level is, high or low, on what you think the winds may be with this thing at landfall.
Well, Jim, right now my confidence level is fairly low. It could be anywhere between a low 3 and a high 4. The current forecast intensity is going to be in the 4 range. Currently it's 140 miles per hour. But keep in mind, the difference between a strong 3 and a weak 4 is rather minimal relative to the damage that it can cause. But the difference between a weak 4 and a strong 4 is huge, or a weak 3 and a strong 3 is very, very large indeed. So pay attention to what the strength of it is, not so much what the category of it is. And tonight we've got a circulation out here that's 140 miles per hour, but it's not looking all that healthy. It's not as well organized as it was, and we think the reason for that is some dry air just to the north of it that is entraining into it and sort of causing the system to be a little bit sick. You really have to leave alone Category 4 hurricanes in order for them to persist. Otherwise, they'll weaken down to Category 3. Now, this one's still a healthy Category 4. We're going to monitor very carefully this dry slot in here to see whether or not that weakens the system before it makes landfall. We have a lot of time to go. In the meantime, based on our track, the greatest threat for wind damage, we think, is in central and southeastern Florida, with some damage potential all the way up into South Georgia and southern portions of Alabama. This would primarily be in the form of tree damage and power line damage. Down here we could have significant structural damage if it were Category 4. Jim?
And as you talked about earlier, Dr. Lyons, too, the potential for some heavy rainfall, and that may be a huge story, not only for Florida, but points north as well. Well, a lot more tonight on Francis. We're going to keep you covered. Stick around. And our coverage of the very dangerous Hurricane Francis continues tonight. We look at the satellite infrared image, and Dr. Lyons was just going over how this doesn't look as organized as it did. Yeah, but still, as you look at this satellite, it still looks quite ominous indeed. One of the interesting things, too, that we saw, especially from the hurricane hunters, was lightning associated with this. That could have a little something to do with the dry air, so we'll keep an eye on that for you as we watch the hurricane hunters continue to report in a little bit later on tonight on what they see. Well, let's bring in a new team member here to our live coverage. Stephanie Abrams joins us from Orlando, Florida. Now, you remember Orlando just a couple of weeks ago dealing with a very hard impact from Hurricane Charlie. Stephanie, tell us what kind of debris field is left over, if any.
Jim, if any, it's incredible how much debris we have here in central Florida. There's still roofs that are torn apart. There's tarps over roofs to keep them from leaking. There are trees down still everywhere, branches. And what they're trying to do is urge people to get that debris picked up as soon as possible. And they actually have debris collection centers open. Tomorrow they will be opening from 7 a.m. and they will be open all day long until 7 p.m. So that's what they are urging people to do here, is get that stuff out of here so they don't turn into projectiles if and when Francis does affect the central Florida area. Another big problem, the airports, they will be closing tomorrow here. Orlando International Airport closed at 12 noon, and it will stay closed until Sunday. So that's going to cause some problems as well. Now, in some instances, just getting to the airport is the problem. There's obviously so much to prepare for as Hurricane Francis nears the U.S. coast. Whether that be a place to stay, long lines at the airport, or evacuation routes. And for this reason, many people forget, until it's almost too late, about fuel.
Yesterday I seen the lines begin to move, and I've got diesel, and I figured I'd get an opportunity, and I asked my wife if we should stop, and they just put that green sign out there, we have diesel, so I pulled in here immediately to get into, so make sure we get it before it gets too late.
I drove down Highway 50, and about 4 gas stations were totally out of gas, and every other place had like 20 cars lined up. And I was worried about getting at least close to the airport because I don't want to miss my flight.
And Jim, and you were talking about with Mike earlier about getting the gas, and as you heard that guy mention, just gas stations completely out of gas. We're having the same problems here in Orlando, and unfortunately it's not going to get any better as people continue to prepare and that storm continues to near the area. So we're getting ready here, and hopefully you're going to stay safe there along the coast, Jim.
Yeah, Stephanie, and hopefully we won't hear too many storm stories of people that actually rode this thing out in their car. Well, let's see how the rest of the nation is faring tonight. The forecasts